Hello and welcome back to the channel this week. This week's episode is about the Fujifilm X-T5 and my experiences over the last year shooting with this camera. And it's quite extensive. I put somewhere between 25,000 and 30,000 images through this. And I gotta tell you, so far, I'm really liking this camera a lot. I've actually considered getting another one, but really in my semi-retired state, I really don't need to get another one of these cameras, although I'd like to. I have enough Fuji cameras to go around, and I'm going to be getting rid of some of those because this camera is seeing all the action. Now, the biggest reason that I wanted to do this review was because I've seen some other reviews that I really don't agree with, and there's some really odd comments in there. So I thought what I'd do is I would go over my experiences using this camera on a daily basis for photojournalism, for corporate events, and for landscape work. And, you know, just my going out and walking around and hand holding it, which is my favorite way of doing it. You know, being a photojournalist, I don't use a tripod that much. When I shoot landscapes, I do though, however. And I just shot some this past weekend, or not this weekend, this past week, that I really like. And this camera held up beautifully. Let's go over some of those things that I like about this camera, and I'm going to show you some examples along the way of what I've been doing as far as my shooting goes. So let's talk about the ergonomics. This camera fits my hand perfectly. I can get my hand in there, right on the shutter button, right on the AF button, and it really works great. You know, with this bigger battery, it allows for this larger grip. I tried using one of this grip that they sell, and I wanted it because of the larger lenses that I use for sports, and I gotta tell you, it just didn't fit my hand very well, so I decided that I'm not gonna leave it on there. I'm probably gonna sell it. The other thing is this shutter. It is absolutely exquisite. So let's, I'll put it down here and see if you can hear it. Boy, that is just so silent, it's noiseless, it really is outstanding. Now the next thing I like is, coming from an X-T3 where the AF on button it just wasn't, I mean, it was where it's supposed to be, but it just wasn't raised enough. You couldn't get your thumb on it. It just didn't make any sense. The X-T4 came out with a raised AF button in the same place, and the X-T5 really has kept it in the same place, and I gotta say, I really, really like it. So it's a big jump up from my X-T3. You can get your hand on it easily, and it just makes so much more sense. I always had a complaint about my X-T3 because I couldn't get my thumb on that fast enough, and I couldn't use it really the way I wanted to. But the X-T4 and now the X-T5 have really, all the buttons are in the same place. I've just reassigned the AEL button, the Q button and the AEL button. I'm not sure why they changed it with the X-T4 and the X-T5 here, but I just reassigned the AEL button to the Q button and changed the Q button back to the AEL button. So you can do that, so it's not really that big of a problem. The other thing is that they went back to the X-T3 screen, you know, the screen that goes up this way and goes up this way. I really, to me, this is the way it should be. That's the way a photographer's camera is. The other thing is that I really like the still video switch that they introduced with the X-T4, and I'm glad they kept it up with the X-T5 here. It really makes so much more sense. So when I switch back and forth from still and video, and you know, I don't use the video function that much, but when I do my, my out and about shooting videos, I like to switch back and forth, and it really works great. Now, for me, for sports, 15 frames a second is absolutely essential. Back down around 12 or 11, I don't get as many shots that I want to keep. And it's not like I'm holding it down forever. It's only down for me. If I keep it down for a second, that's a lot. So it's usually only like, 8 or 9 frames, something like that. Sometimes it'll hit 15. But, I always get something in that range that I want to keep. I love the ability to save these custom functions that are on here in so many different ways. And I've mentioned this before in other videos, but I really like the ability to save a bunch of different things. So when I'm shooting sports, I can just put it on custom function 2 and I'm ready to go. I don't have to do anything else. It's already set up for me. It's great. As I mentioned before, this bigger battery here, one of my other complaints is you can't buy a grip for this thing, but I guess I don't need it because I don't even carry an extra battery with me. When I was shooting sports with my X-T3, the problem was that I always had to have my grip on there because it had 2 extra batteries with it. But this has only got, my 1 battery here, and I can go through 400 or 500 shots and I don't have to worry about it. If it gets to using a quarter of the battery, that's about all that's all I have to worry about. So I usually don't worry about it. When I go out and shoot an event or anything, I usually maybe carry the extra battery with me. If I do anything for the paper, then I don't worry about it at all. So the other thing that I like about this camera is the autofocus is really very much improved over my X-T3. With the X-T4, I didn't find that it was that great. So this is a big improvement. The face and eye detection is way improved over the X-T4, and I even use it for sports. When I shoot tennis, I use eye detection and face detection, and it's great. Bird and animal detection, it also works well. I've done videos on this stuff. It really works great. It picks up my dog, it picks up birds. I did birds and dogs. I haven't done any cars, because why am I doing cars? I don't shoot cars, so it doesn't really matter to me that much. So one of the things I really enjoy about this camera is the digital crop. Now, I thought I'd never say that, but when I shoot with the 50-140 for sports outside under the lights, I need that 2.8, and I'm not going to spend the money for a 200 f2. So this gives me a zoom lens at f2.8, and now I can put that 1.4x converter in there as the digital crop, and it gives me like a 297, 298 f2.8 at the long end of that 50-140, and it works great. If I have enough light, then I'm not going to use that lens. I'm going to use the 100-400. Now the next thing is controversial, and that is the 40 megapixel sensor in this camera. And really, I don't see that much need for it, but it's nice to have when you need to crop a little bit. especially with, like I said, with the sports. And I did a video, and you can find it right here, on what I think of it compared to the 26 megapixel sensor in the Fuji X-T5, and it's a little bit more noisy in RAW. The high ISO noise is a little bit too much for me, but quite honestly, you know, it's almost equal as far as the noise reduction goes in the JPEG form. So for me, it's not really that big a deal, and you know, I'm fine with it. I just didn't really, I mean, the photo sites are much smaller than they are on a 26 megapixel sensor, so I'm not really quite sure why they did it. Okay, let's look at some of the things that I don't like about this camera, and believe me, it's it's pretty small. The first one is, and it's pretty lame, but I kind of like having a battery grip on the camera because it gives me that ability to shoot vertically, which I shoot verticals a lot. And when I'm shooting sports, mostly basketball, vertically, that really comes in handy because you can grab that camera like this, well, like this. So I wish I had that, and I don't. One of the other things that I don't like about this camera is the joystick in the back. There's been some complaining about this, but and I've never had a problem with the joystick recentering itself with one click. Some other reviewers said he had to press the display button, the back button, and at the same time. I've never had to do that. I just hit it once, and maybe it's because this camera came with the correct software in it right away. I really don't know. But the thing I don't like about it is you have to move it to one side to be able to change the size of the center point, or I should say the focusing point. And that's really irritating to me. The other thing that people have been complaining about is the formatting the card. You know, hold down the trash button and the control wheel in the back, and usually on the X-T3 and X-T4 it goes right to formatting the card. Now you have to hold it down for an extra 2 seconds. That's a problem. So, you know, okay, it's minor. It doesn't bother me any. I never had any trouble with it. The big one for me is the remote release being on the left-hand side, and also for the mic too. The reason for that is because the memory cards, the door is too large here on the right-hand side. So when you put an L bracket on this camera, I can't use my electronic release. And I'm not going to go buy a small rig, L bracket, which has got another grip on the front of it, and it just makes the whole beast too big. So what I do is I use my my old school, and I just screw it right in here, and I'm all set to go. And it works great. This is an older one, and it works great. So the next thing is subject detection. Now, it works great, but why isn't it automatic? Come on, Fujifilm, keep up with everyone else. Everyone else, well, actually Nikon just introduced it, but Canon's is automatic, I think. It's just so much easier if you have it on subject detection and you point it at a bird and it automatically goes to bird. The camera figures out whether it's a bird or an animal or a car or a plane or a person. Please, Fuji, come on. Why can't you do that? So that's it for my very small list of things I don't like about it. And to me, it's a really great camera. And in conclusion, I got to say that I think it's Fuji's best X camera ever. And they've gone back to basics with photography based. And I got to say, one other thing, I really like all of the film simulations. There's a lot of them. There's like 18 of them, something like that. It's great. And you can do Fuji X Weekly film recipes to your heart's content. But I'm going to tell you right now, I shoot mostly in JPEG, and I'm not messing around with it too much. I do have a bunch of recipes in there just to play with. But what I do is with all my news assignments, I want it to look exactly like what I see, and maybe a little bit Kodachromish. What I do is I use classic chrome, and I just use +2 color. And I got to tell you, for all my news assignments, I've never had one complaint, not one complaint of the color being a little bit funky or something like that. I have to do a little bit of work in Photoshop, maybe opening up the shadows, depending on the lighting and things, but that's about it. So anyway, in conclusion, like I said, I really love this camera. I think it's one of, if not the best Fujifilm X-T camera made. So that's it for this week. And if you like this week's episode, please subscribe to the channel. Maybe throw me a like, maybe make a comment. That would be great. And so that's it for this week. And oh, by the way, check out capeannphototours.com. There's a lot of interesting stuff on there, and hopefully we can get you to come up to Cape Ann for a photo tour. And that's it for this week, and we'll catch you next time.